My husband, the general, who had stayed by my side for 10 years, suddenly gripped my hand tightly on his deathbed, saying with a faint breath, "My lady, in this life, I have not failed my country, nor have I failed you, but I have failed Warner alone." My heart trembled, and before I could speak, he continued, "Swords have no eyes on the battlefield. When I was gravely wounded, she was the one who tended to me day and night without leaving. Although she is your dowry maid, I eventually developed feelings for her. If there is a next life, I want to marry her into the manor." I looked up abruptly, staring at him in disbelief. After a long while, I nodded gently. Seeing this, he closed his eyes with a smile, as if relieved. I lowered my eyes to gaze at his face, the corners of my lips slowly curling into a mocking arc. "Very well. If there truly is a next life, I will personally seize his position as general. I was born in the Duke of Zhongguo's manor and raised in the Prime Minister Chongsun's manor. Back then, when mother took me to remarry the Prime Minister's eldest son, Chongsun Yunqing, the whole capital was filled with sounds of envy. The world called my mother Zhang Wushuang, the most talented woman in the capital. Peerless in both talent and beauty, she actually managed to bring her ex-husband's daughter along and re-enter a noble family as the official wife. Zhongsun Yunqing treats me like his own child. He even made a vow to his mother of one life, one lifetime, one couple, swearing never to take concubines again. However, on the day of the Prime Minister's birthday banquet, he got drunk and lost his composure, and a maid climbed into his bed. That maid originally served the Prime Minister's wife and was quite favored by the madam after the incident. She knelt before mother. She asked for no title, only begging to serve by mother's side. Mother was furious and immediately demanded a divorce. However, Zhongsun Yunqing knelt outside mother's courtyard for 3 days and 3 nights, his forehead bloody, pleading for punishment and forgiveness. Mother's heart softened, and she eventually gave him a chance. Since then, that maid stayed by mother's side to serve. Her daughter, meanwhile, concealed her identity and became my personal maid. But how could a cowardly mother raise such a scheming daughter? That my husband could say those words before dying shows that Lu Warner has done many shady things behind my back all these years. I returned to my room in a daze, regretting my dullness and slow realization. Falling asleep to the fragrance, half dreaming, half awake. I actually experienced rebirth. You just wait 2 more days, and we can meet." Opening my eyes, I was standing in the small courtyard of the Prime Minister's residence, under a pear tree. The pear blossoms were like snow, blooming in clusters. Outside the courtyard wall was Fan Batao's young and clear voice. "Mother won't let me see you, saying it is bad luck. Just bear with it for 2 more days." I raised my eyes to look at that tree of pear blossoms, but my heart was filled with a chill. She exhausted every scheme, but it was nothing compared to a light stroke of fate. It seems I have undergone rebirth. Just as I was thinking, faint noises came from outside again. Fan Batao's voice was urgent and low. "Ayu, I have one more thing to tell you, on our wedding day. I want to bring Warner into the family as well. You'll be the principal wife, and she'll be a noble concubine. All right?" My expression was indifferent. In this life, his bond with Lin Warner is still shallow. Yet he is already so impatient. It seems that inside this youthful shell lives the old soul of that heartless man. I sneered and stepped toward the courtyard gate. Pushing the door open, I came right face to face with Fan Batao. His face went pale instantly, and he cried out repeatedly, "Why did you come out? It is bad luck, bad luck." He still had those sword-like brows and starry eyes, handsome and bright. He was the very young man who once promised me he would marry only you. Yet at this moment, his hand was tightly holding Lin Warner's. He hurriedly shielded Lin Warner behind him. Lin Warner leaned on his shoulder, sobbing pitifully. "Sister, it wasn't me. It was Master Fan who said he wanted to marry me." I looked up with a smile and gazed at Fan Batao. He puffed out his chest and held his head high, speaking with self-righteous confidence. A you who doesn't have 3 wives and 4 concubines. You and Wanner have always been like sisters, so it is only logical for me to take her in as a concubine. I sighed softly. Young Master Fan, do you still remember? It was you who personally promised me in front of the entire city that in this lifetime you would marry in that case. Where do you expect me to put my face? Fan Batao frowned, a hint of impatience in his tone. It is just taking a concubine. Aren't you being a bit too petty? This is Wanner. Aren't you two always the best of friends? Always, that is right. I was blinded back then, and I really did treat her well. I gave a soft chuckle. How do you know we're the best of friends? Besides, you two, when did you get so close behind my back? He froze for a moment, yet still held on to Lin Wanner's hand, then smiled and said, Keep the good stuff in the family. If you sisters both marry me, you can look out for each other in the future. He was convinced that I would definitely marry him. After all, back then, I was the one who stopped his horse and asked him if he was willing to marry me. To get him to say yes, I tried to please him at every turn and obeyed him in everything. He thought I loved him to the bone, but how could he know? I refused to leave him solely because he comes from the Pingyang Marquis Manor, destined to don armor and earn a title. I married him to become the general's wife, so I could freely access the military tents and the armory, seizing the chance to investigate my maternal grandfather's death. My maternal grandfather was the Grand Marshal of the state, yet he died a bizarre, sudden death on his way back to the capital. The emperor granted posthumous titles, and with a single died of illness from the Dali temple, the case was hastily closed. I have never believed it. In my past life, I endured hardships for decades, following Fan Batao on campaigns east and west, and finally found some clues. My grandfather died from a barbarian assassination, and there was a traitor in the court colluding with the enemy. The one under the most suspicion was the regent, who held absolute power, the current guest advisor to the crown prince, Sima Heng, who would later dominate the court. With this rebirth, I intend to do far more than just this. Since that is the case, Fan Batao wants to marry Lin Wanner, so why shouldn't I grant his wish? I looked at him, the corners of my lips curling up slightly. Since you want to take a concubine, I naturally won't stop you. I paused, then said softly, As for our marriage, let's call it off. What? What? Fan Batao and Lin Wanner exclaimed in unison, disbelief written all over their faces. Lin Wanner stole a glance at him first, then revealed a hint of panic. Sister, you and young Master Fan are getting married the day after tomorrow. How can you call off the wedding now? Yeah, You Fan Batao frowned, his tone angry. You asked for this marriage yourself. What nonsense are you talking about? Lin Wanner bit her lip, let go of his hand, trotted over to me, and grabbed my sleeve. Sister, how could you act like this? Young Master Fan is handsome and talented, and comes from a military family. He is bound to have a great future. Are you angry that he wants to take me as a concubine? Then I just won't marry him. As long as I can follow you, I don't ask for anything. I don't ask for anything. A mother who asked for nothing climbed into my stepfather's bed. A daughter who asks for nothing had a secret affair with my husband. I shook off her hand, my expression calm. I said I won't marry. And who do you think you are? You are just a maid. It is not your place to meddle in your master's business. Lin Wanner's face turned ghastly pale. Fan Batao, however, spoke up first, his voice and expression stern. You've gone too far. I gave a faint smile and turned to look at him. Young Master Fan, are you deaf? I said. I won't marry you now. In what capacity are you interfering in my Jiangxin family's affairs? Lin Wanner is my maid, How I deal with her is not for you to comment on. Fan Batao's gaze turned cold, staring dead at me, as if seeing me for the first time. I never knew you had such a temper. Today has truly been an eye-opener. His voice suddenly dropped. Since you won't marry, then step aside. I regret it. I want to marry Warner as my legal wife. As for you, if you want to marry me, then lower yourself to be a concubine. An utterly absurd joke. I turned back to look at Lynn Warner. The smugness on her face at that instant simply couldn't be hidden. I blinked. Fan Batao is currently just a commoner and has not yet inherited his title. Yet she is certain that in the future he will become famous throughout the world and become the great general. So confident. It seems she has also experienced rebirth. I flung my sleeves and left, heading straight back to the manor. As I stepped over the threshold, I waved my hand casually, shut the door. The doors slammed shut with a boom. Unfortunate. That position of general, I happen to be interested in it too. As for a husband, I have a more suitable choice. Kneel down, Father shouted angrily, smashing the teacup to pieces. Lynn Warner, when did you hook up with Fan Batao? Why does he want to take you as his wife? Speak. Lynn Warner trembled all over, kowtowing repeatedly. Warner doesn't know what she did wrong. I've never had any dealings with young Master Fan. It was he who insisted on marrying me. You still dare to argue. Father was trembling with rage. What is your status, and what is his? Even if the Marquis Manor has declined, it is still a prestigious family in the capital. On what grounds would he marry a maid like you as his lawful wife? He pointed at her in anger. I don't know what shameful tricks you used, but as long as I, Jongsun Yunqing, am around, I will never allow you to marry into the Marquis Manor. On what grounds? Lynn Warner, who was kowtowing, suddenly stopped moving and slowly raised her head. She wiped the tears from her face, her expression instantly changing from fragile to ferocious and cold. Why is it that Jongsun Yu can marry, but I, Lynn Warner, cannot? Father was furious. You are just a maid, and you dare dream of comparing yourself to your master. But Lynn Warner suddenly started laughing. A maid, just because my mother was a maid. You made your own biological daughter serve an outsider like Jongsun Yu as a maid. Right, Father? Father swayed, his face turning pale instantly. When did you find out? Lynn Warner snorted coldly. Mother told me to endure. So I endured for 18 years. Now that a good marriage has come to my door, why should I still endure? It is Jongsun Yu who is blind. Fan Batao wants to marry me, and as his main wife, you can't stop me. Father was burning with rage, grabbed another teacup, and was about to smash it down. I stood outside the door, listening quietly for a long time. Only at this moment did I curl my lips and push the door open to enter. Father, wait. The teacup stopped just in midair. I said faintly, if Warner wants to marry, let her marry. My marriage with the Fan family is off. Father had a headache from anger and waved his hand to let Lynn Warner leave. Are you upset? After Lynn Warner left, I shook my head at him. I just fell for someone else. I don't like him anymore. But I saw you were getting along fine with him before. I chuckled and said, I don't want to endure too much unspoken suffering for a moment of pleasure. He isn't worthy of being my husband. Father sat stiffly on the couch and asked cautiously, Then does your mother know about this? I smiled casually, sat down beside him, picked up a piece of pastry and put it in my mouth. She knows. Father broke into a cold sweat right then, hurriedly raised his sleeve to wipe his forehead, and asked in a lowered voice, Then, how was your mother's expression? Was it good? I leaned over and whispered, Not too good. Hearing this, Father immediately sat up straight, his face ashen, muttering, What should be done? Something bad is going to happen under his breath. The next breath, whoosh! A kitchen knife tore through the air, flying right past Father's face. With a crack, It embedded itself in the screen behind him. Father scurried away with his head in his hands, jumping up in fright, and shouted at me. If you don't want to marry, then don't. Everything is up to you. Who have you taken a fancy to? Father will go propose on your behalf right now? Mother rushed in right on his heels, a second kitchen knife still in her hand, screaming furiously. Jongsun Yunqing, you stand still. You still have the nerve to bring up yours marriage. That little hussy Lin Wanner dares to push her luck. It is all because you spoiled her. Do you want to die? I leaned against the doorway and clicked my tongue as if watching a show. Street rumors indeed cannot be trusted. My mother, Zhang Wushuang, can write and paint. Skilled in pen and sword, can go into the kitchen and onto the battlefield. The #1 beauty in the capital, she is truly worthy of the name. As for why my stepfather doesn't dare take a concubine, he was beaten scared by my mother. I made my hands into a trumpet and shouted at Jongsun Yunqing, who was scurrying around the room. Dad, Mom, hurry up and get ready. Go propose for me. The air went quiet instantly. Father and Mother both stopped their movements. Mother was holding a kitchen knife in her hand, her face breathtakingly beautiful, yet she asked with murderous intent, talking about whom? I curled my lips into a smile. Guest advisor to the Crown Prince, Sima Heng. Sima Heng currently holds no official title. He is a commoner from a humble background whom the Crown Prince brought back from the wilds. It was because he possessed both virtue and talent that he gained the Crown Prince's favor and was recruited into his service. With such a vast disparity in our social status, just because I said, I fancy him. Father and Mother personally went to his door to propose marriage. The Sima residence is in the outskirts of the capital. The courtyard walls are old, and the gateway is desolate. Father sighed the whole way back. He kept saying his family was poor, afraid I'd suffer if I married him. After thinking it over and over, they actually doubled the dowry originally intended for the Marquise's manor. To my surprise, Sima Heng agreed very quickly. Thinking it over carefully, marrying into the Prime Minister's estate would naturally be of great benefit to his future. He agreed readily, which was also within reason. The wedding date was set for the 3rd day of the 3rd month, coincidentally the same day Lin Wanner was getting married. On the day of the wedding, I was dressed all in red, applying my makeup in front of the mirror. Suddenly, a clattering sound came from next door. Lin Wanner angrily smashed her rouge and powder, shrieking, Master Fan is going to marry me as his official wife. How dare these servants fob me off with such junk? Just wait until I become the general's wife and carry the Fan family's child. Let's see who still dares to look down on me. I chuckled. We both experienced rebirth, yet Lin Wanner still wants to pin her fate of rising up on someone else. Fan Batao loved her gentle and well-behaved exterior, yet knew nothing of the green-faced monster inside her. The Marquise's manor is in for a real scene in the future. The Sima family's wedding procession arrived outside the gates of my Changsun residence first, but ran smack into the Fan family's procession. Fan Batao's eyes went wide as he pointed at Sima Heng and shouted, Which family are you from? Today my Marquise's manor is taking a bride. What are you blocking the road for? I followed the matchmaker out the door, just in time to hear Sima Heng say indifferently, The one I married is none other than the lady of the Jongsun family. A sharp-eyed servant nearby hurriedly stepped forward to explain. Young master, this is the Crown Prince's favorite. He is here to marry Miss Gongsun Yu. Fan Batao's face turned livid on the spot. He watched me walking over from a distance, and his anger flared up instantly. Gongsun Yu, you dare play me. The one you are supposed to marry is clearly me. What gives you the right to marry someone else? Fan Batao wants to marry me to curry favor with the Prime Minister's manor, yet also wants to stay with his beloved maid. Where in this world can you find such a good thing? I spoke with a smile, my voice clear and bright, so the onlookers could hear every word clearly. Young Master Fan, you are mistaken. It was clearly you who insisted on marrying a maid from my minister's estate, as your official wife, Miss Warner, is right inside the room waiting for you. Hurry in and fetch your bride, Mr. Groom. I paused, then smiled and said, besides, who in the world doesn't know? My, Jongsun Yu's, husband can only marry me alone in this life and the next. Fan Batao gritted his teeth in anger, dismounted, grabbed my wrist tightly, and persuaded in a low voice. Stop making a fuss. I was wrong the other day, saying things to upset you. Once we return to the Fan Manor, the power to manage the household will still be yours. Why go to such lengths just to make me jealous? I swept a glance over him like I was looking at a fool. Just as I was about to speak, a low, deep voice suddenly came. Let go. I raised my eyes from behind the round fan. I saw Sima Heng dismount from his horse, dressed all in red, demeanor like jade, radiant as a clear breeze and bright moon. We never met in the previous life, but seeing him now, this man is truly more handsome than Pan An, with a clear, sharp beauty that transcends the mundane. He reached me in a few steps, raised his hands, and gently picked me up. The surrounding commoners exclaimed in unison. Sima Heng held me steadily, his gaze cold and heavy, looking straight at Fan Batao. This person is my wife. Please show some self-respect, sir. I tilted my head and secretly sized him up. Behind us, Fan Batao straightened his cuffs and walked towards Lin Warner's room, thinking he looked dignified, not forgetting to mutter in a low voice. The one I am marrying is the legitimate wife from the Prime Minister's manor. My fingertips gently hooked onto Sima Heng's sleeve. I thought to myself, it seems that in the last life, Lin Warner already knew her background and told the secret to Fan Batao. It is a pity. He has no idea at all. The ones father loathed the most were precisely Lin Warner and that birth mother of hers. Just as I was pondering, a low chuckle sounded from above my head. Wife, I am your husband. Why do you keep staring at men from other families? I immediately lowered my gaze, putting on a shy expression. Husband, you've misunderstood. I was just thinking how soon I could leave the Prime Minister's manor and enter the doors of your Sima family. A flicker passed through Sima Heng's eyes, but he said no more. He simply carried me into the bridal sedan, then vaulted onto his horse. The procession was grand the entire way. When we arrived at the Sima residence, both sides were lined with court dignitaries. As a close confidant of the Crown Prince, Sima Heng was someone everyone was dying to go up and befriend. The bowing ceremony, the rituals. After all the tedious etiquette, I was helped back to the room. The door closed. Outside, the guests were still clamoring, wine cups clinking, and congratulations ceaseless. I gently set down the round fan, raised a hand to yank off the heavy headdress, and quickly changed into casual clothes, taking advantage of the festive noise at its peak. I pushed off with my toes and flipped out through the window, heading straight for the Sima residence's study. Today was the Sima family's big day. All the guards had been called to the backyard to drink wedding wine, leaving only a few sentries in the front yard. It was the perfect time to make a move. I first threw a few pebbles to lure those alert guards away, then immediately slipped into the study. In my last life, I found out that someone among the barbarians was actually secretly exchanging letters with some big shot in the capital. If Sima Heng really is involved with them, the evidence must be hidden in his study. I searched quickly through the room. In an inconspicuous corner, I found a strange little box. It was made entirely of white jade, warm and flawless, yet locked with a bizarre puzzle lock. Just as I was figuring out how to open it, the light footsteps of my personal maid, Huaner, came from outside. Me heart tightened. I stuffed the box into my clothes and quietly returned to the wedding chamber the way I came. My hair fell loose to my waist, and I was left in the room wearing only my red undergarments. I leaned against the headboard, looked up at the person pushing the door open, and curled my lips slightly. Husband, you are back. I raised my hand to touch my hair, grasped the hairpin in my hand, and gently pressed the silver needle inside. By all rights, Sima Heng should be dead drunk right now. With one prick from me, even a god would fall asleep instantly. But when I looked up, the smile on my lips froze before it could fade. Behind Sima Heng followed a flock of beauties, heavily made up and jingling with jewelry. He walked quickly straight up to me, swept me into his arms with a wave of his sleeve, and whispered against my ear, "Help me get rid of them, and I'll give you what you want." I stiffened for a moment, hid the hairpin, and instantly understood what he meant. So, I went with the flow and wrapped my arms around his waist, pressing my face against his chest, twirling his loose long hair around my fingers. I looked up and asked, "Husband, who are these people?" The woman in the lead stepped forward gracefully, bowed elegantly, and smiled. "Greetings, sister. My name is Lan Ji. I was sent here to be the young master's concubine." My pupils shrank violently, and I screamed out, "A concubine." I immediately turned my head, mimicking the way my mom lectures my dad, and slapped Sima Heng on the shoulder. "Sima Heng, do you have a death wish? You dare bring a bunch of concubines to see me on our wedding day? I told you, my husband can only have me. Otherwise, I'll really kill you, believe it or not." The group of women down there looked at each other in dismay, but one still smiled and spoke up. "Madam, don't be hasty. I am Vice Minister Chang's." Before she could finish, I grabbed a teacup nearby and smashed it at her, then snatched up a feather duster and waved it around madly. "Get the hell out! I don't care who sent you. If you dare step foot in the Sima Manor again, I'll break every single one of your legs." The women turned pale with fright, covering their heads and scattering in all directions. I slammed the door shut with a bang, slid the bolt, and tossed the feather duster aside. Looking back, Sima Heng was sitting upright on the bed, calmly clapping his hands. "My lady is indeed extraordinary." I smiled and threw myself into his arms. Yet the silver needle in my hand stealthily pressed against his neck. "Husband," I said in a soft, sugary voice, "I've ruined my reputation just to help you. You said you'd give me what I want. What is it?" But Sima Heng suddenly gripped my wrist, flipped over, and effortlessly pinned me onto the bed. The silver hairpin was snatched away by him and flung onto the ground, making a crisp sound. My black hair was scattered over the brocade quilt as I looked up at him. His thin lips drew close, almost touching mine, but at the last moment they grazed past lightly, landing by my ear as he whispered, "Like the box in your bosom." My heart gave a jolt. The next moment, his hand had already reached into my waist. Anne took out that white jade box. With a few flicks of his fingertips, the strange lock was easily undone by him. Inside the box, a red jade pendant lay quietly. I froze, unconcealable disappointment showing in my eyes. It wasn't the evidence. Sima Heng raised a brow as if seeing right through my thoughts, and said indifferently, "It seems this isn't what you wanted." He put away his smile, sat on the edge of the bed, his tone composed. "Let me guess, little Lady Zhongsun married me to investigate the old affairs of the Duke of Zhongguo's manor." Just one short sentence, yet it set off a landslide and tsunami in my heart. I stared fixedly at him. As a guest advisor under the Crown Prince with zero background, he remained unscathed after the Crown Prince's tragic death in the previous life. Not only was he not implicated, but he skyrocketed to power, suppressing the court officials to become the Prince Regent. How could a powerless commoner win the trust of two successive Crown Princes? And why was he able to make the entire court bow down in submission? I scrutinized the man before me again. The more I looked, the more I felt he was shrouded in an impenetrable fog. My gaze fell upon that red jade pendant, and long buried memories surged in my mind. In the 10th year of the Jianan era, Grand Princess Jiaping went missing while on her way to a marriage alliance in Bidi. Her fate was unknown. The emperor used this as a pretext to fly into a rage and wiped out the entire nation of Bidi. The world said it was due to the deep bond between brother and sister. But in my past life, when I was investigating my maternal grandfather's wrongful conviction, I stumbled upon another secret. The emperor and this grand princess had a relationship that was far from ordinary. She was already pregnant when she left for the marriage alliance, a fact that was strictly suppressed by those above. Members of the royal family all wear Mandarin duck blood jade. The emperor has one piece, and the other was with the grand princess. And now, the female Mandarin duck jade pendant, belonging to the grand princess, had unexpectedly appeared in Sima Heng's study. A sudden chill ran through my heart as an absurd yet impossible. To ignore conjecture rose within me. Sima Heng could he be the emperor and Grand Princess Jopping's illegitimate son? My expression remained unchanged, and the corners of my lips curled up slightly. Husband, what kind of talk is that? I married you because I have feelings for you. Sima Heng's fingertips landed on the side of my face, slowly caressing along my cheekbone, his voice deep. Such a beautiful face, and so good at lying. The words had barely fallen when he leaned in closer, his breath overwhelming me, and lowered his head to bite straight onto my lips. Warm, forceful, probing with a hint of malice. I froze for a split second. Then anger rushed straight to my head. I shoved him away, raised my hand, and slapped him across the face. You lecher. I was so angry inside the quilt, pointing at him and demanding furiously, "Why did you kiss me?" He covered the side of his face I'd slapped red, yet was amused to a chuckle by my appearance, his eyes full of teasing. Oh, finally stopped pretending. I gritted my teeth, looking at this sly fox before me, deeply feeling that I was absolutely no match for him when it came to having thick skin. He let me rummage through the study and showed me the jade pendant. He probably wouldn't hurt me. I scooted towards the edge of the bed, deliberately putting distance between us. Since you've already found out, I don't need to hide it. I suspect my grandfather's death was very fishy. He picked up the thread as if he had expected this all along. Do you suspect the crown prince? Or should I say, suspect me? I shot him a grumpy glance. You tell me. He wasn't annoyed. Instead, he straightened his lapels, sat up straight, and spoke with a seriousness I'd never heard before. You are investigating this in the wrong direction. I can tell you the truth. The candle flame flickered slightly, his voice steady and slow. Your grandfather indeed died by accident. The barbarian sleeper agents were after the Crown Prince's life. That day, the Crown Prince and I were meeting a capable man in the eastern suburbs. It was your grandfather who single-handedly blocked the fatal blow, shielding His Highness with his very life. He paused for a moment after saying this. I returned after sending the Crown Prince off, but he was already beyond saving. But he grabbed my hand and said the barbarians wouldn't let this go, and would very likely take their anger out on the Duke of Zhongguo's manor. He said your birth father is weak, and if you and your mother don't have the protection of your mother's family, you'll be bullied to the bone in the future. He told me not to say anything to protect the Duke of Zhongguo's manor. I reported this to His Majesty. His Majesty granted a posthumous title, but to avoid unrest, the Dali Temple closed the case simply. All of this was then buried in the dust. I looked up, but I clearly found that someone was secretly exchanging letters with the barbarians. He looked at me with surprise, then nodded. The Emperor has already ordered the Crown Prince to handle this matter personally. I sat there dazed, as if a heavy hammer had struck my heart. The answer I've sought for years, keeping me sleepless night after night, turns out to be this. Grandfather was not wrongly accused. He died to protect the Crown Prince, to protect the Duke of Zhongguo's estate. I gritted my teeth, clenched my fingers, then loosened them. I sighed and asked him a question. So, Sima Heng, then why did you still marry me, knowing I have no feelings for you? And we've never met. Why marry me? He was straightforward, concealing nothing. His maternal grandfather was my savior. When he was dying, his only worry was you and your mother. Your mother remarried into the Prime Minister's manor, and Jongsun Yunqing cherished her greatly. You once said, "The husband you marry must take only you as his wife." He looked outside at the flock of women I had just chased away, a mocking half-smile playing on his lips. You saw it yourself. How many people want to plant spies by my side? He paused, his gaze falling back on me. Sorry, I did use you, but I promise, as long as I am here, I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe. I gave a soft chuckle. There was desolation in the smile, as well as self-mockery. You men always thinking that women need to find a place of refuge. For a woman to marry, it seems only right and proper. I looked straight into his eyes. But can we women really only rely on our husbands, our in-laws, and our maternal clans to live? I don't want to be a caged bird, and I don't want to live depending on anyone. During the 6 months at the Sima Manor, I practiced martial arts daily, my double blades whirling, grinding thick calluses onto my palms. Whenever I was free, I'd dress as a man and sneak off to the drill grounds. Horse riding, archery, and contests of strength, all just waiting for the recruitment exams in 3 months. In late summer during August, news came from the Marquis Manor that Lin Wanner was expecting. I heard that when she married in, the old madam of the manor was extremely displeased. But since she doted on her only son, she didn't dare actually kick her out, so she could only torment her both openly and in secret. Now that she is pregnant with a child, if she really gives birth to the eldest son, her status will soar. But how could I let her get what she wants? Fan Batao eats and sleeps at the military camp, fully focused on preparing for the exams, with no time to care for the family. If he really goes to the border, it will take at least a year, at most 3 years to return. Yet right at this time she got pregnant. It is too coincidental. I secretly sent someone to investigate. At nightfall, the informant delivered the news. Lin Wanner was actually having an affair with the stable hand. I burned the letter paper, a cold glint flashing in my eyes. When Sima Heng knocked and came in, the ashes hadn't fully scattered yet. He sat down, picked up the tea bowl, got straight to the point, and asked in a calm voice, "You've been training troops lately? Want to join the army?" I hadn't planned on hiding it from him in the first place, so I nodded. He paused for a moment, then said, "You want to disguise yourself as a man and enter the barracks. I might be able to help you." I raised my hand to interrupt him, frowning. "No need. If I have to beg you for such a trivial matter, how am I supposed to keep going in the future?" He gently set down the teacup, his gaze landing on me. "You don't want to stay in the Sima family." I looked at him strangely. "We aren't close. After the misunderstanding is cleared up, why would I stay? I want to find someone who can stand side by side with me. As for you, you should also go find your true love." He stood up abruptly, his voice a bit urgent. "No, we can't divorce. As soon as you leave, those women the officials try every trick to force on me will be entering the manor again." I raised an eyebrow and chuckled. What does that have to do with me? He remained silent for a long while, as if suppressing his emotions, then slowly spoke again. "If you don't leave the Sima family, I will lend you a hand. Having someone's help is better than fighting alone." My thoughts shifted. Cooperation. Having one more friend wouldn't hurt. I immediately grinned, without standing on ceremony. "Since we're partners, then lend me a few people to use." Soon, the news of Lin Wanner's affair with the groom spread like wildfire through the streets and alleys. Sima Heng's people really came in handy. In less than half a day, the rumors had spread everywhere. When the news reached the ears of the old madam of the Marquis Manor, she flew into a thundering rage. Lin Wanner denied it to the death, crying until she was out of breath, insisting that it was the child conceived when she visited the military camp. The old lady doted on her son, but was also afraid that the family morals were truly corrupted. She couldn't make up her mind for the moment. She could only lock her up for now. Sima Heng's informant came to report. Lin Wanner cried out her grievances almost every day, crying until her voice was hoarse. In early September, with Sima Heng's arrangements, I successfully entered the military camp disguised as a man. Before leaving, I gave the Marquise's manor a big gift. Fan Batao suffers from sterility. He cannot get a woman pregnant at all. Heaven knew, earth knew, and only the me from my previous life knew about this. On the day the army set out, the Marquise's manor turned into a complete mess. When the old madam learned the truth, she was so enraged, she broke one of Lin Wanner's legs on the spot, which also caused her to lose the baby. A cripple who had disgraced the family, she was quietly sent away to a countryside estate to be locked up. I heard that ever since then, she has been acting crazy all day long, her mind completely destroyed. Later, the old lady picked a child from her own maiden family to adopt, claiming Lin Wanner risked her life to give birth to it, then immediately passed away. To keep Fan Batao from getting distracted in the army, the old lady kept this matter a secret. The Prime Minister's residents felt this was losing face, so they feigned ignorance. And so, Lin Wanner became a thoroughly abandoned pawn. Sima Heng, this ally of mine, is actually quite tactful no matter what I do. He never asks a single extra question. Life at the border was harsh, and Sima Heng often sent gifts and letters. Through his letters, I kept track of the goings on in the capital and probed for news regarding the minister's estate. Whenever I was on leave, I would rush back to the capital on horseback to visit father and mother with him, so they wouldn't become suspicious. In the summer of my first year at the border, a drought suddenly struck the neighboring prefecture, and Sima Heng came to manage the disaster relief on the Crown Prince's orders. At that time, I was already the commander of the 3 armies. After the disaster relief was finished, he passed by the border camp and waded through the water to enter, just to see me. The night was heavy, and I walked side by side with him along the riverbank. He looked at me and sighed softly. "You've lost so much weight. To think you actually endured all the hardships of the army." I stood with my hands behind my back, my tone calm. Believe it or not, the children of the Duke of Zhongguo's estate have never thought of relying on others to live. He said faintly, "I believe it." I raised my eyes and met his gaze. The depths of his eyes were lit up by the moonlight, as if hiding countless unspoken words. Yet, he only said softly, "Ah, you, do what you want to do. Leave the matters in the capital to me, don't worry." I was slightly stunned by his words, and couldn't help smiling at him. Under the moon, we walked slowly. He explained the situation in the court to me in detail. The emperor is gravely ill, and the various ministries are eager to make a move. For this disaster relief, it was the Crown Prince who single-handedly suppressed the officials and went around raising funds and provisions to stabilize the situation. When he spoke of the Crown Prince, his tone carried a deep sense of protectiveness. I suddenly asked him, "In your heart, who is the Crown Prince to you?" I thought he would say someone he admired, or perhaps a mentor and friend, but unexpectedly, he confessed without hesitation. "He is family, a brother, and the future wise ruler I am willing to protect with my life." I looked at his chiseled profile and gently curved the corners of my mouth. "On the 15th of next month, at the foot of Mount Gesang, make sure the Crown Prince doesn't take a single step near there. There's an ambush." He abruptly turned his head to look at me. I sighed. "Sima Heng, for the sake of our marriage, this time, you owe me." With a single sentence, I saved the Crown Prince. Sima Heng wrote me a letter, lengthy and flowing. At the very end, he wrote, "Ah, I believe our paths crossed in a past life. That is why, in this life, you came to my side." Not long after, the emperor passed away from illness, and the Crown Prince ascended the throne. Yet Sima Heng, right when his power was at its peak, chose to retire from the limelight, distancing himself from the court strife. After 3 years of warfare, having racked up countless military merits, I finally became a regional commander-in-chief. As for Fan Batao, relying on his memories from his past life and thinking himself clever, he repeatedly underestimated the enemy. In the Battle of Huaishui 3 years ago, He pursued relentlessly and was ambushed, leaving him permanently crippled and never able to wield a blade in battle again. When I led the reinforcements, I met him face to face in the camp for the first time. The soldiers I would save Fan Batao. I would absolutely not tolerate. After returning to camp, I reported his willful recklessness and unauthorized orders in full, sending him on the path to dismissal and a return to the capital for investigation. The rise and fall of the Marquise's household in this generation drew to a close right there. Before leaving, he made a special trip to apologize to me. The old matriarch of the Marquise's household had already spilled the whole truth. He looked haggard, yet his obsession remained hard to dispel. I know I was wrong. Since you left the capital, you probably don't care about Sima Heng. Do I still have a chance? I shook my head, Fan Batao. I have never had feelings for you. He stumbled backward as if he'd been shoved. When he looked up at me, he actually wore a smile that bordered on madness. I don't believe it. We were so in love for a whole lifetime, and you said you'd always stay by my side. Why has everything changed this time? It is all my fault. My fault for choosing Lin Wanner. If I had known earlier that it would end like this, I absolutely would not have let go of your hand. I smiled faintly, not intending to tell him that I was also a person of rebirth. I looked up at the sky and chuckled lightly. Fan Batao, you were wrong about one thing. I do have feelings for Sima Heng. On the day I returned to court to receive my title, I confessed before the entire court of civil and military officials that I was a woman. Disguising as a man is the crime of deceiving the emperor. If someone with ulterior motives digs this up, my mother will also be implicated. I knelt before the hall, presented the tiger tally with both hands, and said loudly, Your Majesty, please take back my military honors. I only beg you to spare my life. I was retreating in order to advance. Sure enough, the emperor laughed heartily. Though you are a woman, you surpass thousands of men. Your merits were carved out by your own hand. Why would I take them back? He sat upright on the high platform, his tone certain. Besides, I have long known of your background. Sima Heng has already reported the matter to me in full detail. The court was in an uproar. A woman as a general, simply unheard of. It disrupts the ancestral laws, disrupts the rights. Maternal grandfather Zhang Sun and father defended me one after another. The emperor waved his sleeve and decided, Since I have already promised Sima Heng not to pursue Zhang Sinyu's crimes, from now on, she shall guard the border. After court was dismissed, father chased after me out of the palace hall. Wiping his sweat, his voice was full of complaint and heartache. You and Sima Heng kept this from me and your mother for 4 whole years. Every time you came home, you were dark and thin. I thought that Brat was mistreating you. Turns out, you ran off to the military camp to fight. Swords have no eyes. If something had happened to you, how would we go on living? I held his arm affectionately and whined playfully. Daddy, aren't I perfectly fine? I even became a general. Just be happy for me. Happy? I am happy. He patted my hand, his eyes filled with unconcealable pride. Then he sighed again. But as a father, I can't bear it. I can't bear to see you suffer. Your mother and I can protect you. And Sima Heng, that boy has you in his heart. He certainly wouldn't let you suffer. You, a girl insisting on becoming a general. I listened to his nagging as we walked, then suddenly said, How about you and mother have another one? You are handsome, mom's beautiful. Another child would surely be super good. Looking, save you two from always worrying about me. You brat, what nonsense are you spouting? Father poked my forehead, blushing bright red with embarrassment. When we walked out of the palace gates, Sima Heng was already waiting by the sedan chair. Father rushed over in a few steps, his anger flaring up again. You, as a son-in-law, it is one thing for you to act recklessly, but you are acting recklessly right along with her. Her mother and I were completely spun around by you two. If she loses even a single hair in the future, I'll hold you responsible. Sima Heng lowered his head, respectful to the extreme. Father, in-law is right to lecture me. I hurriedly pushed father away. All right, father. Hurry home. I'll come see you and mother in a couple of days. As the carriage started moving, I waved goodbye to my father through the window. The curtain fell, and I said lightly, Say, if he knew you were a prince, do you think he'd be scared? Sima Heng chuckled, his gaze falling on me. I looked at him, my voice soft but firm. Sima Heng, you've done a lot of things behind my back. He gazed at me and said softly, I promised you I'd handle the aftermath of everything in the capital. I sighed. You resigned your post because you were afraid the emperor would be wary of me becoming a general? He looked into my eyes, the depths of his eyes like sunken stars. When he was the crown prince, I could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. But now that he has become the emperor, I must keep my distance. To accompany a king is like accompanying a tiger, and the emperor's mind is unfathomable. You can't possibly not know that. I nodded. If I were a general and he were an official, we still wouldn't be able to escape the emperor's suspicion. Merit overshadowing the master has never been a joke. Then I'll just step down. Being a general was just to prove a point. But he shook his head. I couldn't bear it. I was stunned. What? He looked up to meet my gaze, his tone serious. I couldn't bear for you to give up the thing you love most. I know you love the people at the border, the citizens of Yingdu. You love the solitary smoke of the desert, the long wind filling the sky. You love the mountains and rivers beyond the borders, the boundless freedom. If you want to guard the realm, then I will guard you. He took out that red jade pendant from his bosom and placed it in my palm. The first time I saw you was in a tea house facing the street. You were dressed in red, holding Fan Baotao's hand, shouting to the people below the city tower. The one I marry must be with me for a lifetime, just the two of us. I know there are mysteries about you that I cannot solve. But since the person you chose in the end is me, no matter what, I will not let go of your hand. The rest of our lives is long. I want to be with you to stabilize the country and aid the people. The corners of my mouth slowly curled up, Sima Heng. Then have you also heard that the husband I, Jongsun Yu, marry can only marry me alone, and can only love me alone? The wife I want to marry is the same. He opened his arms, curling his lips into a light smile. Wife, how about we start over? I threw myself into his arms and hugged his waist. From then on, understanding, staying together, and accompanying each other, loving each other until our hair turns white, with never a doubt.